Staying True to Value, Exploring Global Literature. Hi, this is Sally's Book Club. Today we're exploring In Defense of Food, an Eater's Manifesto. As the saying goes, food is the essence of life. Eating should be the simplest daily act. Yet, it's becoming increasingly complicated. While modern markets overflow with edible items, not all provide essential nutrition. This explains why some become obese, yet malnourished, even developing chronic diseases like coronary heart disease and diabetes. The Western diet stands as the prime culprit. This book defends traditional foods while exposing the damages caused by Western dietary patterns. So, what exactly defines the Western diet? When we think Western diet, burgers, fries, fried chicken, pizza, and steak come to mind. It's essentially an industrialized food system dominated by nutritional reductionism. Despite its name, globalization has made Chinese eating habits increasingly align with Western patterns. Evident through perpetually crowded KFCs and McDonald's across Chinese streets. How can we reclaim healthy eating habits and nutritional sovereignty? The answers lie within our featured book. Author Michael Pollan, America's food culture icon, dubbed the Food Sage, multiple James Beard Award winner, the culinary world's equivalent of Oscars. Like a culinary detective, he investigates Western diet's impacts across farms, supermarkets, and kitchens, championing real food while combating industrial food systems' harms. To clarify his arguments, we'll explore three key questions. First, how industrialization transformed human diets. Second, how nutritionism eroded traditional food cultures. Third, escaping the Western diet's harms. First, what dietary shifts has food industrialization caused? Primarily four major transformations. The first major shift is from eating natural foods to consuming highly processed foods. Let's take white flour, the most common staple in our daily lives, as an example. Before roller mills were invented, people used stone rollers to crush wheat, but the flour produced wasn't as white as what we see today. And this is because stone rollers could only remove the outermost bran layer, but couldn't eliminate the germ. The germ contains nutrient-rich volatile oils. When crushed, these oils get released, giving flour its yellowish tint. Once exposed to air, these oils oxidize and spoil quickly, drastically reducing flour's shelf life. Ironically, this ugly germ is the most nutritious part, packed with protein, folate, B vitamins, omega-3s, carotenoids, and antioxidants. Around 1870, roller mills were invented, completely removing the germ and refining the remaining endosperm. This produced snow-white flour that could last for months without spoiling. But the problem is, this visually appealing white powder contains almost nothing except starch and protein. The most nutritious germ was industrially removed. Where food processing technology prevails, everyone eats this bleached flour as staple food. Then came catastrophic outbreaks of pellagra and beriberi. It wasn't until the 1930s, vitamin discoveries, that scientists identified the causes. Both diseases resulted from B vitamin deficiencies in diets. Flour manufacturers then began artificially adding B vitamins to their products. When scientists later identified folate deficiencies, manufacturers started adding synthetic folic acid, forcing our bodies to adapt to artificial nutrients. These are the very nutrients discarded during industrial food processing. The second change is dramatic reduction in food diversity. This might sound counterintuitive. Don't supermarkets overflow with countless food options? This is actually just surface-level perception. In reality, biodiversity is rapidly shrinking. With industrial agriculture's rise, only high-yield crops suitable for mechanization dominate cultivation, forcing thousands of species out of commercial circulation. For instance, half of U.S. commercially grown broccoli belongs to the high-yield marathon variety. Similarly, over 99% of American market turkeys are broad-breasted whites. Moreover, two-thirds of Americans' daily calories come from just four crops: corn, soybeans, rice, and wheat. But As omnivores, humans require at least 50 different nutrients for optimal health. It's nearly impossible to obtain complete nutrition from processed versions of these four staples. Earlier, we discussed reduced food diversity. Furthermore, industrial agriculture sacrificed food quality for quantity. The third major dietary shift, put simply, you now need 3 apples to get the iron content of 1 apple from decades past. You must consume multiple more bread slices than a century ago to meet daily zinc requirements. Why has food quality deteriorated so drastically? The author identifies two main causes. First, chemical fertilizers accelerate growth, but create shallow root systems unable to absorb soil nutrients. Second, fundamental changes in grain varieties. USDA research shows high-yield wheat breeding caused 28% iron reduction, with zinc and selenium each down 33%. The result? Quantity over quality diets created a new biological reality: overfed, yet malnourished humans. Malnutrition diseases, once associated with poverty, now plague obese children. The fourth change: humans consume vastly more seeds than leaves. Observe closely. Our staple crops like rice and wheat are all cereal greens. These efficiently convert sunlight, fertilizer, air, and water into macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Even meat consumption indirectly involves grain absorption through livestock feed. The overabundance of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins now threatens human health, evident in soaring obesity and diabetes rates. Plant seeds also contain omega-6 fatty acids. While essential for bodily functions, omega-6 promotes cancer growth and inflammation, requiring omega-3's counteractive effects. Omega-3s, another essential nutrient, originate from plant leaves rather than seeds. Omega-3s suppress inflammation and prevent serious diseases. Clinical research tone. Clinical studies show omega-3's critical role in fetal development, particularly brain and vision formation. Maintaining omega-6 to omega-3 balance is therefore crucial. Our seed-heavy diets create unprecedented omega-6 levels, negating omega-3's benefits. NIH research reveals billions spent developing anti-inflammatory medications like penicillin, ibuprofen, and acetaminophen, essentially funding solutions to omega-6 overconsumption consequences. Let's summarize the first issue: 4 dietary shifts caused by food industrialization. First, processed foods replacing natural nutrition. Second, monoculture farming reducing biodiversity. Third, modern agriculture sacrificing nutritional quality for yield. Fourth, human diets narrowing to few staple crops. We've discussed dietary composition, the what of eating. Now to how. Should we follow ancestral food wisdom or nutritionists' dietary guidelines? This leads to our second issue: how nutritionism destroyed traditional food cultures. Before food industrialization and nutritionism prevailed, people followed traditional food wisdom to decide their diets. Mothers traditionally held ultimate authority over what, when, and how much we ate, the guardians of culinary heritage. Like when mom served unattended wild greens, insisting, "Eat more of these," without detailed explanations. These dietary traditions endured through generations because they proved effective in maintaining health through centuries of practical experience. So how did industrial food systems and nutritionism override these traditions? First, food industry's annual production of tens thousands new products holds irresistible appeal for novelty-seeking modern consumers, especially with nutritionism addressing Western diet issues. We instinctively prioritize scientific claims over cultural wisdom regarding health matters. So what exactly is nutritionism? How did it gain such widespread acceptance? Nutritionism differs from nutrition. It's not science, but ideological belief system. It claims nutrients, not whole foods, determine nutritional value. Macronutrients like proteins, fats, carbs, micronutrients like vitamins. What drove the shift from eating foods to consuming nutrients? The 1977 U.S. Senate dietary guidelines played pivotal role. Senate found excessive meat and dairy fat consumption spiked heart disease rates. Initial guidelines bluntly advised reducing meat and dairy intake. Fierce backlash from meat or dairy industries forced guideline revisions. Final version targeted saturated fats instead of specific foods. This linguistic shift marked fundamental change in dietary thinking. Subsequent guidelines avoided eat less, more food advice, carefully framed in nutrient terms, like how carrots and citrus get credited for cancer prevention, reduced to beta carotene in veggies and vitamin C in oranges. This cultural narrative made people view eating as nutrient extraction. Even tradition keeping moms started urging eat more spinach for iron, more fruits for vitamins. From nutrient perspective, processed and whole foods became interchangeable. Yogurt fat replaced with hydrogenated oil, coffee creamer with cornstarch, even egg yolks substituted. Flavor enhancers, dyes, preservatives make processed foods rival natural ones in appeal. Thus, nutritionism dominated dietary consciousness. People believed maximizing good nutrients while minimizing bad guarantees longevity and leanness. Some experts claimed we could ditch real food for supplements. Early 20th century medics observed adopting Western diet brought chronic diseases worldwide. They turned these Western diseases, though mechanisms vary, all share root cause, Western dietary patterns. Nutritionism's single nutrient focus ignores food matrix interactions. Example, global studies show whole fruits and vegetables have anti-cancer properties. Nutritionists began investigating which specific nutrient in these foods provides anti-cancer benefits. Research suggested antioxidants like beta-carotene, lycopene, and vitamin E in fresh produce were responsible. But when isolated from whole foods, these antioxidants lost their efficacy. Shockingly, supplemental beta-carotene actually increased cancer risk in some studies. What's happening beneath the surface? Are we targeting the wrong antioxidants? Maybe beta-carotene alone isn't the magic bullet. Perhaps it requires synergistic compounds only found in whole plants. The exact mechanisms remain elusive. Clearly, studying isolated nutrients is fundamentally flawed. Despite being unscientific, nutritionism has eroded food cultures and displaced real foods. Without nutritionism, industrial food's impact would be far less severe. So how do we escape the Western diet's consequences? Our final exploration. The author proposes 3 rules. 1, eat food. 2, mostly plants. 3, not too much. This approach enhances both health and culinary joy. First rule demands distinguishing real food. Practical test. Would your great-grandmother recognize it as food? Imagine her accompanying your supermarket trip. At dairy section, she puzzles over modern yogurt packaging. You explain it's yogurt with new packaging. But the ingredient list reveals corn syrup, carrageenan, and artificial flavors. She'd never recognize these additives as food. In her understanding, yogurt should just be fermented milk with bacteria. How did it become so complicated? Is this even edible? The great-grandmother test helps filter processed foods, but isn't foolproof. The safest escape from Western diet, frequent farmers markets over supermarkets. Farmers markets overflow with fresh, recognizable foods, exactly what ancestors would identify. Now, prioritizing whole foods most of time leads toward health, but some natural foods outperform others. Against the second rule, plant-based diet prioritizing leafy greens. Numerous studies show plant-rich diets reduce mortality from Western diseases. What about meat consumption? Humans have always cherished meat. It provides essential amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. No absolute need to eliminate meat, but no necessity either. Except vitamin B12, all meat nutrients exist elsewhere. Excessive meat introduces saturated fats, omega-6, hormones, and carcinogens, higher risks with red meat. Overconsumption displaces plants from diets. Dangerous imbalance. We've addressed what? Real food, plant-focused. Now the how of eating. Simplest advice, don't overeat. Implementation strategies. Invest in quality over cheap junk. Eat at set meal times. No eating away from table. Avoid couch, bed, street snacking. Social dining prevents overeating. Eat slowly, heed body signals. Moderation, the least popular yet most crucial advice. But truthfully, everyone should eat slightly less, regardless of current weight. There's solid science behind this. Studies consistently show calorie restriction slows aging and extends lifespan in animals. Some researchers believe overeating accelerates cell division, especially cancerous cells, while moderation slows it. It also reduces inflammation and lowers risks of Western diseases. How to eat less? Easier said than done in Western diet culture of cheap calories. Let's learn from other food traditions. The French savor smaller portions over longer meals, unlike American fast consumption of oversized servings. Okinawans, among world's longest lived, practice hara hachibu, eating until 80% full. How to recognize 80% fullness, cultivate sensory awareness. Stomach signals take 20 minutes to reach brain. Most Americans finish meals before this signal arrives. How do they know when to stop? When containers empty, money runs out, or TV show ends. Countering fast food culture, the slow food movement celebrates culinary pleasure, focusing on quality over quantity. Rebuilding connections between producers and consumers, severed by industrialization. Eat slowly, consciously understanding food's journey from farm to table. Gratitude towards food providers enhances dining joy through knowledge and appreciation. Let's recap today's content. Industrialized Western diet has destroyed traditional food cultures and structures. Our ancestral food wisdom gets replaced by nutritionism's pseudoscience. These fundamental changes have spawned various Western diseases. Thus, the author proposes a simple dietary principle to counter Western diet harms. Eat food, mostly plants, not too much. The Western diet has transcended geographical boundaries, becoming the global dietary norm. May this book inspire mindful eating and reclaim our health as conscious consumers. This concludes In Defense of Food. Find show notes below. Stay tuned for our next literary journey.